So we continue with the economic importance of bacteria, and now we see the useful role of bacteria in medicine. Bacteria are used in medicine for the production of antibiotics, serums, and vaccines. First, let's see what is antibiotics. An antibiotic is a chemical substance produced by a living organism which can stop the growth of some disease producing bacteria and fungi. So, antibiotics are again a kind of chemical substances produced by another living organisms, and these has got the property that they will not allow the growth of another kind of bacteria or fungi in that region. So disease causing another bacteria or fungi will not be able to be formed due to the presence of the antibiotics around them. Today we know of dozens of antibiotics widely used in the treatment of numerous infections such as streptomycin, chloromycetin, tetracycline, penicillin, and so on. So we are using so many different kind of antibiotic drugs on a daily basis, not a daily basis, but in our some kind of infection and all. So all these antibiotics, so they are of different kinds. But the first antibiotic was penicillin, which was discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1929. So penicillin, the first produced antibiotic from a fungus. In 1929, Alexander Fleming observed that some bacteria growth in a culture were destroyed by an accidental contamination of a mold Penicillium cryogenum, okay, formerly known as Penicillium notatum. So it was accidentally found that by Alexander Fleming that due to the growth of certain kind of a fungus, that is Penicillium notatum, also now it is called as Penicillium chrysogenum. Now this particular kind of fungus did not allow the growth of another kind of molds or any in the and destroy. In fact, it destroyed certain bad bacteria which were growing around in that particular plant growth. So this way, he discovered that this mold produced a substance which suppressed the growth of many bacteria, and the substance was named penicillin, the first antibiotic for medical use. But remember, penicillin is a product of mold, fungus, and not of a bacteria. So yes, definitely when we are talking about antibiotics, so there will be penicillin which is there, but penicillin is a fungus and not a bacteria. The antibiotic streptomycin are discovered next by Salman Waxman in a similar way. Its source organism was a bacterium Streptomyces gracius. Some well-known antibiotics, their sources and disease they treat are as follows: Penicillium cryogenum, it is tetanus and diphtheria. Streptomyces gracius, which is tuberculosis, which disease treated is tuberculosis. Chlorotetracycline, that is Streptomycin aureofacium, that is for typhoid, so medicine for typhoid. And erythromycin, which is Sachae polyspora, which erythroia, okay, which is rickettsia fevers. So all these are different antibiotics which are used by us for different treatment in the diseases like diphtheria, tetanus, tuberculosis, the typhoid, and rickettsia fevers. Now, when we talk about the antibiotics, there should be certain criteria for telling that okay, this is a good antibiotic. Now, what should be the criteria? So the criteria for a good antibiotic: it should be able to kill a variety of disease-producing microorganisms, broad spectrum antibiotic. Now, it should be such that when you are taking that particular antibiotic, it can treat not only one particular kind of a disease, but it can not only kill a certain kind of germs or a certain kind of bacteria which are or viruses, but it should also be able to do a wide variety of the different kind of disease spreading germs. So it should be able to fight a lot. Now that is the reason you must have, if I don't know how keenly you have seen that one. But if you go to a doctor and you say that okay, you have got a stomach ache, he will prescribe you something which is called as mox. Okay, there's a medicine which is named as mox. Okay, there will be many names of this, Clova mox, Piriton mox, बहुत सारे mox होते हैं, but most of them will have a end word as mox, or maybe start word as mox, so because they are all moxycyclines. So that mox will be there even for stomach ache. If somebody has got a toothache and has got a infection in the tooth, he will be still given mox. If somebody has got some big wound or something and he's got, or maybe some kind of a treatment where he got for, some cut or something is there, or some kind of stitches are being taken, then also you'll be taking mox. So you are taking that particular antibiotic for multiple kind of ailments. So that is why we need that the good antibiotic will be the one which will be having a wide variety of disease curing capacity. Secondly, it should not produce undesirable side effects. So yeah, it is very much important that okay, it is able to cure from this particular disease, but in a way you are getting some another kind of a problem. Okay, it should not happen. Okay, I am treating myself for my heart, but automatically it created problem to my lungs and I now become asthmatic. So that would you would not like to have that thing. Okay, you would not like to cure one area and get wrong with something else. So that's why there should be no undesirable side effects. And third, it should not kill normal bacteria of the host. Now, in our body, there are so many bacteria which are good bacteria. So we don't want that when you're taking that antibiotic, the good bacteria which are there in the body get killed. So that's why a good antibiotic with the one which will be having all these three properties, that it will be having a wide variety of the microorganisms to be killed by it. Secondly, it will not have any side effects, and thirdly, it will not kill the good bacteria which are present in the body. Apart from being a good medicine, the antibiotics can also be used for as food preservative, especially in meat, fresh meat and fish. See, the fresh meat and fish, they of course when they are being, when they are being like fishes are being, the fishing is being done, or then it is going to go into some kind of a treatment. तो वहाँ पे treatment क्यों होता है? So that they don't get stale or they do not go bad. So that's why they are treated with some antibiotics so that the fishes remain fresh for a longer period of time. Similarly is the meat also, the place where the meat is being produced, or the sheep and the cow, the sheep and the goat are being cut, and that particular, and from there it is going to the market where it is being sold. तो वो जो टाइम लैग है, और द चिकन एंड ऑल, सो दे आर गोइंग टू बी गिवन दैट पर्टिकुलर टाइम पीरियड. तो वो टाइम पीरियड एक्सटेंड करने के लिए दे आर यूजिंग फूड प्रिजर्वेटिव्स व्हिच आर एंटीबायोटिक इन नेचर. Next is for treating animal feed. So yeah, the animal should not get affected. That's why the animal feed, what they are giving to the animals, they are also treated with antibiotics. And finally, for controlling plant pathogens. So even the plants are given antibiotics so that they are free from the pathogens which could be coming across, coming along with them. The plants are not getting bad or not getting any kind of infections. So after antibiotic is the next one is the serums. So serum actually means blood plasma from which fibrinogen has been removed. It may contain numerous chemical substances including antibodies and antitoxins. So our body contains blood. Now blood contains the RBC, WBC platelets, okay, and apart from that they also have certain kind of proteinous materials called fibrinogen. Now if you remove the fibrinogen from the blood, what is going to remain is just the blood plasma, which will be containing the antibodies or the chemical substances which will be antitoxins and antibodies, which are the one which are able to help us to fight against the diseases. So serums are being extracted from the blood plasma by removing the fibrinogen from the blood plasma. So that is why it is the blood plasma from which fibrinogen has been removed. Toxins are poisonous proteins released by the pathogenic bacteria during their growth or upon their breakdown after they die. Antitoxins is a substance produced in animal bodies which react with the poison toxin produced by the invading germ. So whenever a germ enters into a body and or any kind of a bacteria enters into the body, which is a pathogen, it is going to create a kind of a poison for the body. It is going to cause a kind of a proteinous poison is going to be generated by that particular germ or the bacteria, which is going to affect our body. So those kind of poisonous substances which are going to be produced by the bacteria and be released in our body are called as toxins. Okay, so and our body, what it does is are going to produce antidote against those poison. That is, it is going to produce some chemicals which could fight against these particular toxins, and those are called as antitoxins. So these antitoxins are the ones which are produced by our body, which are going to react with these poisons to make the poison harmless. So a serum contains antitoxins, chemical substances from a particular pathogen. Serum are used as a preventive measure against bacterial invasions. For preparing serum, a small dose of bacterial toxin is introduced into the blood of a healthy animal such as a horse or a cow. The body produces antitoxins to neutralize the effect of the toxin. After several injections of the same toxin, the blood of such animal is taken out. On chilling, it clears a straw colored liquid which separates out from the clot and is called serum. So serum has been continuously being produced by our body whenever they are coming in contact with the toxins. This particular kind of the mechanism is used by the people or the scientists, or we can say the medicine producing people, that they will produce such kind of antitoxins from animals. So for example, if we talk about the horse, now horse will never get affected by the venom, that is the poison of the snake. The snake poison does not affect the horse. Why is that so? Is because the horse has got a antitoxin present made in its body which will easily fight with the venom, that is any antivenin. Now, but it will not be always present in the horse. It will be present in the horse only when certain amount of venom enters into the bloodstream of the horse. So what exactly the people do is they are going to inject the horse with a certain amount of venom. So when it happens, automatically the body of the horse will start producing the antibody or the antitoxin against the venom in its blood. So certain more number of injections are given to that vein so that the quantity of the antibody or the antitoxin produced by the horse in his blood increases. So once it reaches a particular level, the blood of the horse is drawn, okay, part of the blood, and of course it's something like a small quantity of the blood is being extracted, and then it is going to be processed. उसको chill करते हैं, उसको ठंडा करते हैं, and then you are going to centrifugation करके they are going to take out a white transparent straw like sugar. The straw clear, straw colored liquid is going to be extracted. That is nothing but the serum. So this is because वो जब हम लोग centrifugation करते हैं तो clotting part, that is the RBC, WBC platelets and the fibrinogen is going to separate out, and the straw colored liquid is going to be separated out. This can be easily taken out, which is nothing but the serum. So snake bite treatment involves injecting the particular antivenin produced from the blood of horse, for example, etc., in the same manner as given above. Genetic engineering has made it possible to introduce the human gene in certain bacteria like Escherichia coli. This bacteria cultures grow very rapidly. The particular gene-dependent products are extracted from these bacteria. The hormone insulin was the first such substance produced by E. coli. Now, what they do is that genetic engineering. Now, genetic engineering is a kind of a method by which they are using the bacteria to generate some kind of enzyme of ours. So, for example, when they wanted to produce insulin, they took a very small quantity of insulin and they injected this insulin into the body of this particular E. coli bacteria. Now this E. coli bacteria had the tendency to multiply very fast. So when it multiplied, it automatically multiplied the content which is inside it, which is nothing but insulin. So accordingly, the insulin was produced by this particular bacteria, E. coli. That is how the rapid movement, the rapid formation of the bacteria helped us to get this particular kind of genetic material. So a few serum compounds produced by genetically modified bacteria are blood clotting factor 8 of the treatment of hemophilia A and blood factor 9 for the treatment of hemophilia B. So hemophilia is a kind of a disease which is related to the blood. So hemophilia normally the इसमें ये होता है कि hemophilia के जो patients होते हैं उन लोग का problem ये है कि in case they have a problem with the clotting of the blood, so the blood does not get clot because the platelets are not proper. So that's the reason they are having problems in clotting of blood. That's why it becomes very serious for them, because even a small wound could be very serious for them, as they would keep on losing out the blood even with a small cut. So for treatment of such kind of disease like hemophilia A and hemophilia B, blood clotting factor 8A and 8 and blood clotting factor 9 both are going to be produced by the serum, that is it is by genetically modifying the bacteria. The next are vaccines. Vaccine preparation consists of weakened germs or dead germs produce substances. Vaccination, the introduction of weakened germs or dead germs substances into the body for developing resistance to a particular disease. Now, vaccines are basically a kind of a method by which you are making the body produce antibodies. Now, in our body, it is seen that we have got certain kind of memory cells which can easily identify the germ if it has already come in contact with, and then it also knows that what was that enzyme, that is the antibody produced by the body to kill or to get rid of that particular germ. So that particular way of producing antibodies is what we do is that we can say in a way we are trying to fool our body. By the vaccination is just trying to fool our body, because what we do is that we are going to introduce a small quantity of that virus into our body, so which would be even a dead virus or maybe a weakened virus, and that particular weakened or a dead virus is going to be cited by the blood, and it is going to produce the antibody to fight against it, and in a way it is going to keep the make that particular thing harmless. So antibody, and then what happens is the next time when the actual virus attacks your body, at that time the body already knows the antibody to be produced for that particular virus, and accordingly it will produce the right quantity of antibody, right variety of antibody, and hence it will safeguard the body from getting infected by that particular virus. So that's why the vaccines are a way in which we are introducing ourselves with some kind of germ or the weakened germs or dead germ substances, and we are trying to generate antibodies means resisting towards or getting immunity towards that particular diseases. So vaccines are available of a particular disease, a variety of diseases such as cholera, typhoid, measles, chickenpox, etc. On injecting them in the body, the person gets the disease in mild form, and this body gets stimulated to produce antitoxins. The antitoxin provide immunity against any further attack of the particular disease germs. So two common variety of vaccine obtained from the growing bacteria are as follows: kill bacteria, TAP vaccine for typhoid, and living weakened bacteria, BCG vaccine for tuberculosis. So this is about the vaccine. So vaccination is a process by which you are trying to generate antibodies or antitoxins against the germs which could enter into our body in a later part of our life. The last are toxins. Toxins are the inactive toxins of the particular bacteria. They can still stimulate the production of the respective antibodies, such as those for producing immunity against diphtheria and tetanus. So apart from the vaccines, there could be also certain kind of chemical substances which can generate antibodies against certain kind of diseases like diphtheria and tetanus. Nodules, okay, now the vaccination we had done in AIDS to Health chapter earlier, but no doubt, as per the new syllabus for 2020, the that particular chapter has been cancelled. But we already learned that earlier in the part vaccination and immunization for AIDS to Health. Now, bacteria role in agriculture. So now we see the role of bacteria in agriculture, and that is a special category of soil bacteria, rhizobium, is found living in the small nodules of the roots of the leguminous plants such as beans. These bacterial pick up free nitrogen from the soil and atmosphere and convert into soluble nitrates. These nitrates are used by the host plant and also by other plants sown later in the same soil. So, nitrogen fixing bacteria are those kind of bacteria which are going to be acting as a symbiont. Okay, symbiont means what? Give and take relationship. So a symbiont relationship with the plant and themselves. So plant is going to give the bacteria the nutrition. In return, what the bacteria does is that it is going to fix, or it is going to convert the atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates and fix them into the soil, so that these nitrates can easily be extracted by the roots of the leguminous plants. So the leguminous plants, or any plant which is there in growing in the soil, is able to extract these nitrates from the soil. So these bacteria live on the nodules of the roots of the leguminous plants like beans or sugarcane. So, and they are going to be present over there, and they are going to extract the nitrogen from the air and convert them into nitrates. Right, so nitrogen fixing bacteria are going to help the plants by fixing the atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates. Certain free living bacteria in the soil like Azotobacter and Clostridium use the free nitrogen of the soil and convert them into ammonia with hydrogen, which in turn gets converted into ammonium amino acids and nitrates, enriching the soil. So apart from just the nitrogen bacteria converting into nitrates, there are certain kind of bacteria which are exobacters or Clostridium, which are going to convert the nitrogen or into ammonia. Okay, the nitrogen of the soil and convert it into amino acids. So ammonia with hydrogen, and they which gets converted into amino acids and nitrates, which is going to be used to enrich the soil. So in a way you are increasing the fertility of the soil, so that the nitrates are available to the plants. At the same time, there are certain nitrifying bacteria. So plants need nitrogen for synthesizing proteins, but they cannot make use of the free atmospheric nitrogen. They can obtain it only in the form of nitrates, which they absorb from the soil through roots. These nitrates are replenished in the soil by bacteria through the means of nitrification. For this, some bacteria first convert the nitrogenous waste of animals and the dead remains of the plants and animals into ammonia. Ammonia is then converted into ammonium compounds, which in turn are first converted into nitrites by bacteria such as Nitrosomonas, and then into nitrates by bacteria such as Nitrobacters. Each of this step is brought about by specific bacteria. So it is seen that they are also called as nitrifying bacteria, which so these are the ones where in the nitrogen, see, plants require nitrogen. Plants will require nitrogen because nitrogen is one of the most important ingredient in the formation of proteins. So plant ko nitrogen chahiye hi chahiye. Now plants, unfortunately, they cannot absorb the nitrogen which is present in the air. So what they do is that they are going to be able to extract the nitrogen only in the form of nitrates which is present in the soil. So the nitrifying bacteria is the one which are going to convert the nitrogen present in the air into nitrates and fix it in the soil. So that's why the nitrates and these nitrates, so they are going to get replenished. Now the nitrates are going to be continuously getting replenished into the soil with the help of the decaying of the dead animals and plants, and that because they are going to get converted into ammonia. Okay, so whenever dead and decayed plants are going to decay, they are going to the bacteria are going to convert it into ammonia, which ammonia automatically is going to be forming nitrates into the soil. So ammonia will become ammonium compound will become nitrites will then become nitrates, and that's why the nitrate, or we can say the nitrogen content in the soil is going to be replenished in this particular manner. And then there are denitrifying bacteria. These are the bacteria present in the soil which break down the soil nitrates to release nitrogen gas that enters the atmosphere. So that is Pseudomonas. Okay, so in the denitrifying bacteria, okay, we can see there is a nitrogen cycle which is given over here in the figure, wherein again the atmospheric nitrogen is going to be taken in by the biological fixation by rhizobiums, and they are going to go form into nitrates. Similarly, animals and plants, when they die or decay, they are going to the dead are going to decay, and the living matter is going to get converted into ammonia, then into nitrites, and then to nitrates. So there will be a cycle in which the plants will eat the animals. Animals are going, and plants and animals both die and form into decay material, and which is forming into ammonia. Ammonia forms into nitrates, and that forms into nitrates, which again is taken in by the plants. And at the same time, nitrates are also being taken by the denitrifying bacteria and converted into nitrogen. So this way, the total amount of nitrogen in the atmosphere is going to be maintained by these denitrifying and nitrifying and denitrifying bacteria. Certain things over here which is not in syllabus, but we'll just read through, because that is decay and putrefaction of bacteria by bacteria. So decay and putrefaction are the greatest use of bacteria in nature. Thousands of animals and plants are dying every moment, and every living organism is eliminating organic excreta. Bacteria act on these dead bodies and on the excreta and break them down into simpler chemical compounds such as nitrates, sulfates, carbon dioxide, which is are utilized by the plant for their growth. So we know very well that the dead and decayed plants and also the human and the animal excreta is going to be there, which is produced on a regular basis, and that particular thing is going to be converted, or it is going to be acted upon by the bacteria and then converted into carbon dioxide and nitrates and sulfates and things like that. Decay is a complete breakdown of organic matter by bacteria without giving out a foul smell. For example, the cow dung exposed to the air is reduced to soil in few days. So we'll find that the cow dung and all, they will be just getting converted into soil in a few days without giving any kind of a bad smell. So that decay is a kind of one which is just a decay. Okay, this is a decay which is just converting the particular organic material into soil. Whereas putrefaction is an incomplete breakdown of the organic matter or by bacteria, emitting a foul smell. So whenever you see any particular kind of dustbin, a big dustbin, wherein you will always, when you pass through, there is a very bad smell coming, or you can see that the collecting vehicle, the municipal van which collects the garbage for the garbage van, will always, if you are just behind it, you will find that there is a foul smell coming in. What is that? That is basically the incomplete decaying of that particular organic material over there. So incomplete decaying always causes or gives a foul smell, and that particular thing is called as putrefaction. There are sewage treatment plants in big cities, Delhi as one such unit, where the collected human excreta is decomposed to by sewage bacteria. A gas is produced in the process which can be collected for cooking, and the liquid and the solid products are used as manure in the agricultural field. The gobar gas plant, are also called biogas plants, are also designed in the same principle. Fermenting bacteria degrade cellulose of the cow dung and release inflammable gases mainly consist of methane. The practice of installing biogas plants is serving a dual purpose, supply of fuel and supply of rich manure. So it has been seen that there are so many different areas having gobar gas plants or the biogas plants. These are the one in which the human excreta or even the plant and animal excreta is going to be collected over there, which is going to produce methane, and this methane can be used as a fuel in the household cooking. So, and at the same time, that particular decayed part, that is the remains of that thing, is a very good manure. So hence this particular gobar gas gives you two advantages. One is the fuel and other is the manure. Synthesis of vitamins and digestion. Several bacteria habitually live in our intestine where they synthesize certain vitamins, especially of B complex group and vitamin K. In herbivorous animals, the bacteria growth in the digestion of in herbivorous animals, the bacteria help in the digestion of cellulose. So it has been seen that bacteria is going to help the body for producing the synthesizing of the vitamins, especially the vitamin B complex and vitamin K. And in case of herbivorous animals, the animals which are going to be eating the plants and the grass and all, they will be such kind of bacteria will be used for digestion of the cellulose which is present in the plant. So plant cell wall is made up of cellulose. तो वो cell wall को digest करने के लिए it requires certain kind of bacteria. So that was about the bacteria and denitrification and for the part. Now we talk about the bacterial role in industry. So the role of bacteria in industry, I'll better take it in the next video.